So just a little bit about me, just because most of you don't know me that well. This is pictures of my family. So that's my sweet dad. We lost him last summer. He is wearing a shirt that says "Awesome like my daughter." That was his favorite shirt. So I took a picture of him wearing that. That is my mom, my daughter in the front, and then my bonus daughter. And then that's my son and his fur baby. He lives on the East Coast. Things that I enjoy, I love the sun. I love sunflowers. I like to hike places that don't use the word summit or peaks. I don't like hiking in those areas. I love education. I love to learn and to read. This is just a map of my journey when I moved out here. I've been living here just under 7 years now. I used to live in Pennsylvania, originally from Missouri. And so just a little bit about me. I wanted to just share a little bit. So CBS officially kicked off last July. We started out with HR and safety, and then we quickly realized that payroll was somewhere we needed to be, and so we started working towards that. This is just a little screenshot of our website. Our website's been up about a month or so, so I encourage you to go check it out. We do have blog posts on there, so we are offering information, just education pieces for you at no charge. You're welcome. Referrals for us. So our ideal client size is 1 to 400 employees. I asked a question 2 weeks ago, how many of you work with employees or have employees? And one person in the room raised their hand, so thank you for that. All of our HR services really cover these kind of main areas. It's hard to describe what HR covers because it really covers anything involving an employee. So anything you could possibly think of an employee, an HR professional is going to be able to handle. But the main points are payroll, which I mentioned. We are going live with that 5/1, so that's something very exciting. We can't wait to get started with that. I can also help you with recruitment and onboarding, compensation and benefits. We don't offer benefits through us, but we can help you navigate that with your broker or insurance company, however you're going about that. Employee relations, again, what does that mean? Anything to do with your employees. We can help you with all of that. Compliance and risk management, that's the piece that nobody wants to talk about, but these are the areas that I highly encourage you to have those conversations, even if it's not with me, just to get that education piece. And then performance management. A lot of the time, the employee relations part and the performance management part will keep you out of the risk part. So sometimes just being proactive is a good way to go. And then if you're already kind of in a situation, I can help you navigate that. I am not a lawyer, but I do work with lawyers. So even if you have a situation, maybe you're already in that, you're not really sure how to handle it, I'm happy to help you with that. I can partner with you, and work with you and the attorney. And then as I mentioned earlier, some of our other service areas are safety. So is that something we talk about a lot in here? But that is something that we offer. And just to kind of go back a little bit, Continental Business, the vision of that came from staffing. Obviously, Continental Labor is a staffing agency. And we saw a need in offering support. There's a lot of clients out there, they don't have HR, they don't have safety. They may be trying to do payroll themselves, and we see that struggle. And so we started thinking, how can we support our clients as a whole instead of just the staffing part? And so that's where the HR and the safety kind of came in, and then obviously payroll just kind of followed along with that. So this is just to kind of give you an idea. When you're in spaces, you're having conversations with anyone, if they mention anything, and it's not going to be, hey, I think I need an HR person. They're going to say, I have this employee I've been having a lot of challenges with. They're constantly absent. I don't know how to handle it. I have someone who's out on leave. They're not getting back to me. Those are the kind of conversations that you're going to be having. And so if you aren't sure how to handle them or you don't have someone there to help you with that, then I'm happy to have a conversation with you. So that's really all. I mean, I really put this together just to kind of give you a little bit more information about me. Our packages are really just going to depend on what the need is. So if you're getting payroll through us, then that would be through your payroll. If you don't need payroll and you're just needing the service of HR, then I'm going to sit down with you and figure out what your need is, and then we're going to come up with a custom pricing package for that, okay? Typically what I recommend is kind of like a lawyer would have you put them on retainer. I kind of suggest the same thing. Have so many hours for the year, so that way you can pick up the phone, call me, have a meeting, I can come and do training. That's another big thing that I like to do with my clients is train and educate their teams, their managers. Again, just to continue that development of the entire organization. So that's really my passion. I do the compliance stuff because I have to, but the training and the education piece and the investment in the employees is where I see the value. That's why I got into HR. I haven't always been in HR. I kind of went into it kicking and screaming, but I saw that lack of value that was being invested in employees. I worked for different organizations over the years, and there was a disconnect between how do we get our service to improve? How do we, improve efficiencies? How do we improve our product? We threw them a pizza party last Friday. We don't understand why they're not happy, And so it was really just kind of seeing that piece of it and how it was impacting the employees and where that disconnect. So that's why I got into HR. And then the compliance stuff, like I said, it kind of comes with it. So you have to do it. Any questions about anything involving the business? Because I did bring a special treat of legal updates for you for 2026. So just in case you didn't know. Yeah, see? Give me a mic. That's what I said. That's what happens. So no questions? Okay, perfect. Yeah.
So for those who don't know, go through the breakdowns of where the law changes by the number of employees you have.
So typically if you're under, there's some laws that are 5 and under, there's some laws that are under 10. Most are gonna hit at the 50 mark for the larger companies, and that's more with leaves and things like that. More and more I'm seeing laws being put into place that are for everyone. So I've seen that a lot this year, especially. They put some new laws, which we're going to go through, and they're really for everyone. So you have some that it's 15. They like to keep us guessing. Most likely, if you're working with me or talking with me, I'm going to encourage you to follow all of the laws unless it doesn't make sense for your business. Just because if you're planning on growing, when you start to grow and you go over that threshold, you don't want to have a complete change in your policies and how you're doing business, because then it throws everything off. And most of the laws that are put in place, and don't throw things at me, I think most of the laws that are put in place make sense. I know they're frustrating, but they make sense, and there's a reason why they were put there. It was put there because something has happened, and they're trying to regulate it. They're trying to give people guidelines. They're trying to help you run your business. Employers do have rights, and when I say that to someone here in California, they're like, right, but you do have rights. And I think there's a lot of confusion about a lot of laws and compliance and how that really impacts you. If you can sit in a room and sit in a legal update like this and say, yeah, I feel good. I feel like we're hitting all of the marks, then you're good. Nothing's bulletproof, obviously. If an employee wants to make a claim, they're going to make a claim. Anything you do can't stop that. But what will help you is if you're following these guidelines and these rules, then you're not exposing the company. You're not putting the company that you've worked so hard to build at risk because one employee was upset. Most employers, what I find, especially small businesses, they have good hearts. They want to do well. They want to do good by their employees. They want to treat them right. They want to treat them like family. But unfortunately, you can get employees that take advantage of that. They don't think of you as family. You are their employer. And so it only takes one little thing to set them off, unfortunately. And it could mean the difference of going to litigation. It could potentially mean closing your doors, depending on what the situation is. So I just, I urge everyone to just take those cautionary steps, and again, you have to operate your business. I always describe it as this. You have black and white, well, somewhat black and white laws, and then you have where you're operating. And there's this gray area in between. And so wherever you decide to go on that spectrum in the gray is where you are going to ultimately operate. So you're either going to operate closer to where the compliance is, or you're going to operate further away. And so the further away you get, obviously creates that exposure. I understand as an HR professional, I'm here as a recommender, right? I'm recommending what you should do. I'm giving advice, but at the end of the day, you're the business owner. You make the decision, and ultimately, you're the one that's going to have to move forward with whatever decision you've made. But my hope is that you're at least educated so that you know that, hey, you know what? I'm making this choice. I feel comfortable about it, and I'm going to move on, and we're going to go with it, you know? This is one thing I did want to mention. So one of the things that we like to do every couple of months or so is to do a lunch and learn. It's free, just me talking, you know, with a microphone, so it's great. But doing different things. So I forget what the first one was that we even did. Oh, best hiring practices. That was the first one we did. This one's building talent through intentional conversations, kind of along that performance management line. So if you maybe have a manager or supervisors that you think might benefit from this, if you reach out to me afterwards, I can send you a link to register for it. And again, it's about an hour. We're going to do it over at University of Laverne. It should be a good time. Any questions yet? No? Okay, perfect. So I just figured I would go through some updates. Most of you probably already know these, but I just wanted to make sure that you are aware. So effective January 1st, the state minimum wage increased to $16.90 an hour. This is all employers regardless of size. Local ordinances obviously may be different, so it could exchange. Like LA County is at $17.81 an hour. So if you have anybody working from a different area, working remotely or anything like that, you just want to make sure that you are you're utilizing the minimum wage rate for where they live and not for where we are. Okay. There are thresholds for the exempt, so anybody who's exempt, they should be at $70,304 annually. That's $1,352 per week. And also remembering when you are putting a categorization on your employees, you want to make sure that you are doing it correctly. So there's an incorrect thought process that if someone is hourly, they're immediately non-exempt. Or if they're salary, they're immediately exempt. That's not necessarily true. So you want to make sure that when you are putting your employees into these buckets, that you're really looking at what their level of responsibility is. That's what's determining their exempt status.
What are you referring to as exempt?
So exempt is from like overtime pay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you can still be non-exempt and be salary. Okay, and be subject to overtime. So just kind of thinking about that when you have employees, making sure that the job descriptions are clear. You have the specific information in the job descriptions to show why they would be exempt versus non-exempt, okay? Another thing that updated were the mileage rates. So they did increase to 72.5 cents per mile. I don't make the rules, that's just what it is. Medical and any qualifying moving purposes decreased to 20.5 cents, which seems crazy. And then charitable mileage rate, 14 cents. I don't think that's been updated since 1998. So if you do anything for nonprofits, it's only 14 cents per mile, which is wild. Yeah, especially for nonprofits. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Pay equity and transparency. So this is one that has a little bit of different laws. You were asking about the number of employees. So pay equity is for everyone, all employers. Obviously, equal pay for equal work, right? You can't pay someone more because you like them more. It doesn't work out. They've also expanded the definition of pay equity. So that means all forms of pay. So that's stock options. That could be in any form, non-monetary or monetary. It has to be equal pay, okay? The transparency law is for 15 plus employees. And this is where you have to, when you post a job, you have to put out there what that range of pay is going to be. And whatever that range of pay is, it has to be realistic to what the rest of your team are being paid. So you can't say like, oh, I'm gonna pay you anywhere from $17 an hour to $40 an hour. Like that's not a realistic, or you can't say we're gonna pay you $40 an hour when you really are probably only gonna pay them $25 an hour. Does that make sense? So just making sure that whatever you're putting out there aligns with the rest of your team and what that wage is, okay? The big thing is just consistency, and you will hear me say that a lot. Whatever you're doing, just making sure that you're being consistent about everything and documenting everything. Any questions about any of that? Okay. Next is the California Know Your Rights. Did anybody hear about this? Okay. Well, good thing you've met me. Okay. So January 1, there was a new template sent out, and I'd be happy to email it out to all of you, but this is basically a notice that all employers must provide to new hires and existing employees. And it's got to be sent to them and provided to them in their preferred language. Okay, so if you normally provide them with Spanish documentation, then it needs to be in Spanish, English, French, all that. They have the templates on the website. Like I said, I'll be happy to share that with everyone. On top of that, so February 1st, this is when it was put into effect January 1st. It was due February 1st. If you didn't have that or you didn't have knowledge of it, like I said, just reach out to me. I'd be happy to share that with you. It is on the website. What it covers is just rights to workers' compensation benefits, rights to notice of inspection by immigration agencies, protection against unfair immigration-related practices, the right to organize a union or engage in concerted activity in the workplace, constitutional rights. So this was a big one. Especially when all the things were happening, have been happening with ICE and all of these things, and they're going into businesses. Employees, they don't know how to handle these situations. We had training at our place just to inform, right? So everyone has rights. Employees have rights. So you have your Fourth Amendment right, which is free from unreasonable search and seizure, and then you have your Fifth Amendment rights, right? You don't have to self-incriminate yourself, or discriminate yourself. And so just making sure that, again, it's just a notice to inform everyone of these rights and of their rights, okay? Anything new, they're going to constantly be changing. Anything new that they come out with is always going to change because litigation starts. It usually takes about a year to a year and a half, but that's what typically happens. So I do look for them to update this, probably add to it, but for now, they put this out. So again, I can share that with you. Another thing that came out, which is due by March 30th, so if you don't have this, you're still good, is that you are required to provide an option for employees to designate an emergency contact if they are detained while they're working. So if law enforcement were to come in and detain an employee, if there's a different contact they want you to have, then yes. So that is something that's also for all employers. You are required to give that to all existing employees by March 30th, and then also for any new. So if you use like an HRIS system that you have employees, you're utilizing for your employees to clock in and out, you're doing your onboarding through that, they should be updating that form for you, but I would make sure of it. If not, I do have a template of a form. It's very basic that you can have. I will just send it to you, so let me know, and I'd be happy to share that with you. The penalty for non-compliance of this, and I wrote this down because I just want to put in perspective what can happen by just not having this form, okay? So penalty for non-compliance is up to $500 per employee per day the violation occurs, up to a maximum of $10,000 per employee, and there's no limits on how many employees. So if you don't put this in place, let's say you have 20 employees, right? That's $10,000 per employee, okay? So that's, right? Yeah, I don't do math. I do jokes. But anyway, so just kind of putting that into perspective, that something that you are out of compliance with can have that much of an impact on the business. It's a little scary, and I get that. And that's why I like to educate and make sure that everyone knows about things like this. Okay, because again, it could just be one employee that sees that you don't have that in place, and they call the labor board, whoever, they start calling people, and then that's what happens. So I don't do this to scare people, but I do want you to be informed. Because if you're not in the space I'm in and you're not having these conversations regularly, why would you know about this, right? You don't walk around asking about emergency contacts, I'm sure. Any questions so far? I see a lot of you looking at me like, why are you up there, Christi? You're scaring us. Okay, and then I think this is probably the last one. So expanded personnel records, this was another new law. Basically, this is just saying that if you have any training that you have your employees take or you provide to them, you need to keep that documentation in their personnel file. With the training, you should have the name of the trainer, have the date on it, and then also what skills or competencies were taught. And it can be 3 or 4, but just the main points of what the purpose of the training was. If it was a certification or something that they received, at the end, keep a copy of that as well. And that's part of their personnel records. So if they need a copy of that, and I think, a lot of employees, if they leave or maybe they took a training with you and they need that certificate to prove something somewhere else, they may come to you and need a copy of that. So it should just be part of their personnel records.
Does that apply to informal training?
Yeah, I would say any training, I would just document it and put it in there. Anything that I do for anyone, I provide a certificate, and on the certificate, I have the main pieces, the skills or the competencies that were taught. It has the date, it has my name, it just covers all the bases, and then that way you're covered, as long as it's in their file. So electronic file or paper file. I love paper, I don't know, but electronic files work too. That's it. Any other questions for me? Did I terrify everyone? Hi.
I have a question. How often are these compliances being regulated, or is it just when there's a problem? If an employee has a problem, then someone comes in and checks and says, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, or is someone regularly checking them?
Yeah, most likely it's going to be if there's been an issue. So disgruntled employees, someone who, was let go that didn't think they were, treated fairly, or, they get mad at their supervisor and, they start talking to people. I mean, you would be surprised that a lot of times it doesn't even come from the employee themselves. It's because they went home and talked to their significant other or their friend, or, all of a sudden they come in and they're lawyers and they know the law and all the things. And there's usually some truth into whatever they're saying, but just you guys being educated and knowing and also feeling comfortable that you are in compliance, then you can navigate those conversations with, with ease, because you feel confident that you're handling things and you're covered in these certain areas. I think, yeah.
No.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, it's so easy on this stuff too. All it takes is one workers' comp claim where the employee goes and gets an attorney.
Yeah.
And the attorney will get that employee to give them permission to subpoena their records.
Yeah.
And once they subpoena their records, find out that the employee's records aren't in line,
Mm-hmm.
then they'll get your entire company's records
Yeah.
subpoenaed.
Yeah, and it can depend on the industry too. I know in staffing, I mean, we have law firms down south. They just send letters like crazy because they're just looking for something to stick. It's all they're looking for.
That was kind of more of the point that I was gonna bring up. My company, I've had up to like 20 employees in the past. And what I've learned, like you talked about the laws, and where I can say is if I were sitting here prior to having to deal with a frivolous lawsuit, I would have been like, oh, well, I'm doing I don't do anything wrong. And that's not the point.
Right.
The way the California legal system
Yes.
is set up. As an employer, if you have a single employee, all they have to do is allege something, and the cost to defend yourself are gonna be so high because they'll find an attorney who will find the right thing to say to a judge, to where the judge is gonna say, I'm gonna grant discovery.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
You haven't done anything wrong. All their goal is to get a judge to grant discovery. And you gotta have your ducks in a row.
Yep.
To help prevent that.
Yes.
Not having an HR firm, if you're trying to do this stuff alone, you're going to end up having to settle.
Yeah.
Based on what I learned from that whole thing, it's like there's no way you can avoid it on your own. And all it takes is one employee who understands, all I have to do is just allege anything.
Yeah.
And find an attorney who's willing to run with it.
Yep.
And you will have to settle, even though you haven't done anything wrong
Yeah.
at all.
Yep.
And I'm sure everyone in here is doing everything the right way.
Yeah.
That's not the point.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and then Jeff, what you were describing, it's called a hunting license.
Oh, yes.
Once discovery is granted, now the attorney has what's called a hunting license. They can go into your records and now they're looking for anything.
Everything, yeah.
Even if it's unrelated to the original charge.
Yep.
And they'll start talking to them, okay, hey, employee that I'm working with now, who are other people who used to work with this employer that they've released? Great, let's get a hold of them. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, the employer's dealing with lawsuits from 6 former employees, all by the same attorney,
Yep.
alleging similar things of something completely unrelated to where the case started. The California legal system lets this stuff kind of get out of hand, so having the right people advising you on HR is critically important to avoid that stuff. And then also, you mentioned one thing, is I think the term you used was consistency. Having the same rules for everyone, you can't, oh yeah, I'm gonna let you take a day off because this, that, or whatever.
Yep.
If you don't have the same rules for everyone, like any
Yep.
little thing that's different between one employer or another is enough to
Yep.
cause these things to go off the rails legally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, it's not as, HR in this state is not as simple as you would think it should be.
I was gonna say, I see a lot of anxiety on people's
Yeah.
faces.
Yeah.
It's just not good.
That's the whole thing though, if you have someone like, I would encourage anyone, if you don't have anyone helping with your HR, at least have a discussion with Christi.
Yeah.
So that's the takeaway.
It's
Yes. Yeah.
very
Have
important to
Yeah.
have someone advising that because it provides a layer and legitimacy if things ever end up like allegations are made and you have a professional company where it's like, okay, we've been doing everything they've asked us. Here's all the documentation. In the judge's eyes, that looks much better than,
Yes.
well, I've been doing all the documentation. It can be exactly the same, what you're doing on your own as opposed to having a professional. But just having that professional in a judge's eyes changes the way you look at
He
things.
looks at you, yeah.
Well, and the other thing, and thank you for saying that, I think the other thing to just keep in mind is whatever your practice is needs to be your policy. So making sure that those align. If you have a handbook or policies in place and your practices don't match, you might as well burn that handbook because it doesn't mean anything. And going back to that consistency. So if you're making a rule, you're making a policy, stick to it. Hold people accountable. If you make changes, make sure you communicate it, and then you also update it in your actual documentation so that it matches.
One comment is, and don't forget this, all employees are happy until they are not.
Boom. Wait, mic drop. That was it. Boom. Boom.
Cross your T's.
Right, thank you very much.
Boom.
John has a last question for
Not a
you.
question, I got taken to the labor board about 20 years ago. And this contractor, he told me, said, John, you will not win. Went to the hearing, we won. She appealed, okay, that interview was over the phone. We won second time.
Nice.
So you can, if your I's are dotted and T's are crossed,
Yep.
you can win.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one time in 35 years.
Yeah, but you still paid attorney fee, so that's the thing though. There's still gonna be a cost. There's nothing bulletproof. And that's why I say that. There's nothing bulletproof, but going in and knowing, I know that I'm doing everything the right way and here it is, right? And then that's the best feeling in the world. Yeah.
Great,
Thank
very
you.
much.